The National News Desk, locally covered, nationally connected.
Your winning streak has ended. Your luck has run out.
This is an illegal gambling operation and sports rigging operation that spanned the course of years.
An FBI probe, now a Hollywood film in the making. The high-tech tools behind the mafia-linked gambling ring that's captured the world's attention.
I have total confidence in President Trump, and he's the only one who can get this done.
See, the only thing I can say is every time I speak with Vladimir, I have good conversations, and then they don't go anywhere.
Rejuvenated efforts in play to end the Russia-Ukraine war. The new tactics aim to bring Russia to its knees after a high-stakes meeting was canceled. Plus,
it just underscores that the previous administration had a get-to-yes posture.
auditing visas from high-risk countries. The new push following a Hamas conspirator authorities say was directly involved in the October 7th attacks was found living in the U.S. From the nation's capital, this is the National News Desk, America's News Now. Thank you for joining us. I'm Dee Gatton, and on this Weekend Edition, we take a look at the big headlines of the week, and we look ahead at what to expect, starting with the 4 big stories we've been following this week. Military operations targeting suspected drug boats expands to the Pacific. Top officials travel to Israel amid the fragile peace deal. The East Wing of the White House is demolished to make room for Trump's new ballroom, and the U.S. places new sanctions on Russia in an effort to stop their war on Ukraine. But first, from X-ray tables to hidden cameras and even pre-marked cards, prosecutors say the suspects charged in Thursday NBA-linked illegal gambling bust used a wide range of sophisticated technology to cheat victims out of millions of dollars. The National News Desk, Jeff Harris, breaks down how the scheme worked and the possible prison time.
The insider sports betting is pretty cut and dry. Players, including Miami's Terry Rozier, allegedly exploited insider information and even faked injuries, all to help bettors. But the rigged poker game's much more sophisticated, including using special contact lenses that could read pre-marked cards. At Thursday's news conference, officials saying the poker scheme, dubbed Operation Royal Flush, started as early as 2019, with rigged games being played in big markets like New York City. The games backed by multiple mafia families.
The FBI led a coordinated takedown across 11 states to arrest over 30 individuals today responsible for this case.
Here's how it worked. The victims, called Fish, were lured into games with the chance to play alongside professional athletes called face cards, including former NBA player Damon Jones and Portland Trailblazer head coach Chauncey Billups.
What the victims, the Fish, didn't know is that everybody else at the poker game, from the dealer to the players, including the face cards, were in on the scam.
Those participating allegedly used self-shuffling machines secretly altered to read the cards in the deck and predict which player had the best hand. That information was sent to someone off-site, then relayed back to the table to the, quote, quarterback.
The quarterback then signaled secretly the information he had received.
The defendants also using a poker chip tray that secretly read cards with a hidden camera, special contact lenses that could read pre-marked cards, an X-ray table that did the same, and hidden cameras built into the table.
This alleged scheme wreaked havoc across the nation, exploiting the notoriety of some and the wallets of many.
Officials saying the scheme cheated victims out of tens of thousands of dollars per game, which former federal prosecutor Nima Rahmani says could land Billups, among others, some serious jail time.
People lost millions of dollars, and to the extent that the sentencing guidelines are based on the amount of the loss or the amount of the fraud, he could be looking at years in federal prison.
Now, both Rozier and Billups have been placed on leave from their teams as the NBA reviews the federal indictments. Rozier's attorney saying his client isn't a gambler and he looks forward to winning this fight. I'm Jeff Harris reporting from Washington.
There's been a slew of notable betting scandals in professional sports leagues over the years. In 1989, Pete Rose agreed to a lifetime ban after an investigation for MLB found Rose placed bets on games while managing the Cincinnati Reds. In 2008, NBA referee Tim Donaghy pleaded guilty to wire fraud for taking thousands of dollars from a gambler for inside tips on games, including games he worked. And just last year, the Los Angeles Dodgers fired the interpreter conspirator of newly acquired star Shohei Ohtani, Ippei Mitsuhara, was arrested over ties to an illegal bookmaker. He pled guilty to bank and tax fraud for stealing $17 million from Ohtani. For more on this story and other top headlines, check out thenationaldesk.com. Ukrainian President Vladimir Zelensky is thanking President Trump for the new sanctions the U.S. is putting on Russia's two largest oil companies. The news followed the cancellation of a meeting between Trump and Russian President Vladimir Putin in Budapest. National correspondent Atra El-Nashar has the details of the new sanctions and why they weren't imposed sooner.
9 months into his second term and more than 3.5 years into Russia's invasion of Ukraine, President Trump issuing sanctions on Russian oil giants Lukoil, Rosneft, and their subsidiaries.
Look, these are tremendous sanctions. These are very big.
Together, the companies account for about half of Russia's crude oil exports. The sanctions are intended to suppress the stream of revenue Russian President Vladimir Putin uses to fund his invasion. NATO Secretary General Mark Rutte believes it will deliver a blow at an already vulnerable time for the Russians.
The Russian economy is in a difficult situation. We know we have these long lines into gasoline stations all over Russia.
Russia calling the sanctions counterproductive. The Biden administration, concerned about a shock in global supply sending prices higher, had already imposed sanctions targeting Russia's energy sector, including some restrictions on Lukoil and Rosneft. These new sanctions essentially ban banks and insurers from doing business with them.
I just felt it was time. We've waited a long time.
Indeed, the president has spent most of his term delaying decisive action.
I have my own deadline, and we want it to be fast. We're going to find out whether or not he's tapping us along or not. And if he is, we'll respond a little bit differently, but it'll take about a week and a half, 2 weeks. I'm going to make a new deadline of about 10 or 12 days from today.
With the sanctions in place, what comes next?
We hope that they won't be on for long. We hope that the war will be settled.
Though plans to meet with Putin in Budapest are derailed, Trump leaving the door open.
It didn't feel like we were going to get to the place we have to get, so I canceled it, but we'll do it in the future.
Both Putin and Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky directly weighing in on the sanctions. Putin says no self-respecting country ever does anything under pressure. Zelensky says the sanctions send a message that aggression will not go unanswered. In Washington, I'm Atra El-Nashar for the National News Desk, America's News Now.
The U.S. has now launched 10 strikes on suspected drug-running boats, including 3 this week. This as President Trump says it is accelerating strikes in both the Pacific and the Caribbean. Secretary of War Pete Hegseth saying this week that he ordered an aircraft carrier to the waters of South America to help with the operations. According to the Pentagon, at least 43 people have died as a result of the strikes. Pentagon leaders are making significant changes to how military officials will communicate with Congress. In a recent memo, the War Department ordered all Pentagon officials to get permission from the Maine Legislative Affairs Office before communicating with lawmakers and other staff members on Capitol Hill. According to the memo, any unauthorized communication could undermine critical priorities of the department. A Pentagon spokesperson calls the move a sensible step in improving transparency with congressional leaders. The nearly 2,500 National Guard members in the nation's capital could remain in Washington past next summer. The D.C. National Guard General writes that while the mission is set to continue through November 30th, America's 250th anniversary in July will be a factor in determining the mission's future. So far, the White House hasn't specified an extension date. District officials say they found evidence troops could remain in D.C. indefinitely. And Mahmoud Khalil appeared in a federal appeals court in Philadelphia this week as he challenges a deportation case brought by the Trump administration. Judges appeared skeptical of the government's bid to overturn a lower court order granting Khalil's release. The Palestinian activist was detained for more than 3 months in a Louisiana immigration facility earlier this year. Federal agents arrested him in March, the Trump administration claiming his presence could harm U.S. foreign policy interests.
That was definitely difficult. It was designed to be cruel. They want to break me because they want to deport me to be out as soon as possible so that others would fear speaking out. That's why I'm continuing to fight.
Khalil is a legal U.S. resident, and he's married to an American citizen. He took part in protests at Columbia University last year, but is not accused of breaking any laws related to the demonstrations. The court said it will need to deliberate on the case. California Governor Gavin Newsom is deploying the National Guard to help support food banks. It comes amid food benefit delays during the federal government shutdown. The governor's office says troops will not be acting as law enforcement. The announcement comes as an appeals court heard arguments Wednesday related to President Trump's deployment of the National Guard to Los Angeles in June. The Trump administration has agreed to resume student loan forgiveness for more than 2 million borrowers. This comes after the American Federation of Teachers sued the administration over certain federal repayment plans that offer lower monthly payments based on borrowers' earnings. The government had stopped providing forgiveness for those plans based on a different court ruling. The agreement will also protect borrowers from being hit with high tax bills. Coming up, tax bracket changes, how the IRS's annual inflation adjustments could impact you. And doctors warn of a rise in a certain form of breast cancer, why it can be difficult to detect. Critics say it's a blatant example of national security threats falling through the cracks. A man accused of taking part in the October 7th attack in Israel has been living in Louisiana, now accused of lying on his visa application to get legal status. Here's the National News Desk, Christine Frizzell.
Mahmoud Amin al-Muqtadi is accused of direct involvement in the October 7th attack in Israel that killed more than 1,200 people and set off a brutal and bloody war in Gaza. This lengthy FBI criminal complaint details audio recordings of the suspect planning and organizing the attack, as well as various photos, including him holding military weapons and pictured with the former head of Hamas, Yahya Sinwar.
What does it say, though, that somebody with involvement in this horrible, deadly massacre on October 7th could, a couple years later, be living in the United States?
It just underscores that the previous administration had a get-to-yes posture. I want to make it clear. I don't have a get-to-yes posture. I don't have a get-to-no posture. I have a get-to-the-right answer that is in the interest of the United States.
Al-Muqtadi pleaded not guilty in a Louisiana court Wednesday to conspiracy to supporting a terror organization and misuse of visa permits.
He lied on his visa form, saying he was not part of terrorism when allegedly he was part of a massacre at a kibbutz that killed 69 innocents, including 4 Americans.
Senator Tom Cotton sending this letter asking the Department of Homeland Security to audit all visas issued through high-risk countries since 2021, when Joe Biden took office, prioritizing potential affiliations with Hamas or other terrorist groups. More concerning with new reports of a resurgence of the Islamic State in Syria and warnings of terrorists living and working in Venezuela.
I have seen from the Venezuelan opposition a database of more than 10,400 people that were given Venezuelan passports who were Syrian, Lebanese, or Iranian citizens up to 2019.
He says at least some of those individuals made their way to the United States, and they were likely part of the CHNV parole program under the Biden administration, which granted parole to people from Cuba, Haiti, Nicaragua, and Venezuela. I'm Christine Frizzell reporting.
A January 6 Capitol rioter who was pardoned by President Trump is now in custody for allegedly threatening to assassinate House Democratic leader Hakeem Jeffries. Officials say Christopher Moynihan of upstate New York said in a text to an unknown associate that he planned to kill Jeffries at an event in New York City Monday. Jeffries says in a statement he's grateful for law enforcement, but Moynihan never should have been pardoned. Republican leaders condemned the threat but stopped short of mentioning the pardon.
Anybody who threatens to kill any political official, we denounce it absolutely. They'll have justice fall upon their head.
Police say Moynihan was among the first group of rioters to break into the Capitol. He was sentenced to 21 months in prison after being convicted of multiple counts related to the riots, but he was one of nearly 1,600 rioters granted clemency by Trump. The Justice Department has announced an agreement with the University of Virginia to suspend civil rights investigations into the school. Earlier this year, the Trump administration accused UVA of failing to end its DEI policies. Under the deal, the university will follow DOJ guidance for not engaging in, quote, unlawful racial discrimination. UVA will also report relevant data on a quarterly basis to the DOJ through 2028. A type of breast cancer that's hard to detect in routine mammograms is becoming more prevalent. That's according to research published by the American Cancer Society. Invasive lobular carcinoma begins in milk-producing glands. It's hard to detect because the cancer cells don't form a defined mass. Instead, it spreads in thin strands that appear normal on medical images. Doctors say that ILC is strongly linked to hormones. In your money, the Internal Revenue Service released its annual inflation tax bracket adjustments for tax year 2026. For example, an individual filer who earns $100,000 in 2026 will owe about $13,170 in federal income tax, $279 less than what they would have owed the year before. The IRS has also increased the standard deduction, $32,200 for married couples filing jointly, and $16,100 for single filers. The president is reportedly seeking significant financial compensation, but this time it's from his own Justice Department. National correspondent Matt Gelka reports from Washington.
President Donald Trump has already secured high-profile financial settlements from multiple media companies, but this time a large lump sum could be coming from the Department of Justice.
Yeah, they probably owe me a lot of money, but if I get money from our country, I'll do something nice with it, like give it to charity or give it to the White House while we restore the White House. And we're doing a great job in the White House. As you know, the ballroom is under construction.
The New York Times reported the president has demanded $230 million from the Justice Department. The payment is meant as compensation for past investigations into Trump when he was a candidate, including inquiries into alleged Russian tampering in the 2016 election and a raid on his Mar-a-Lago residence searching for classified documents. A potential payment would be unprecedented.
My advice to President Trump would be not to do this, because I think the optics are bad. But if he is going to insist on going forward with this, then I think they need to set up a structure that removes the conflicts of interest.
The president and his legal team submitted formal complaints through an administrative process before he eventually went on to win the election. Members of his legal team now hold high-profile positions in the DOJ and could ultimately end up being the deciders on the deal. The potential ethical conflicts were quickly criticized by Democrats and even some Republicans.
Lawyers get to play both sides. They were on his team that brought the lawsuits, and now they're on the team for the Justice Department that would agree to pay him. Well, obviously, that's an unacceptable conflict of interest.
We're in a shutdown posture, so it's at very best bad timing, but I think it's horrible optics.
The Justice Department is not required to announce any potential settlement, meaning hundreds of millions of dollars could be paid with very little fanfare. Reporting in Washington, I'm Matt Gelka for the National News Desk, America's News Now.
Coming up, the dark money that a Utah professor claims is making its way into political races this fall. Plus, a Texas man's invention that could make wind turbines smaller and revolutionize the energy industry. We're back in 90 seconds. National News Desk team of reporters is bringing you the headlines from coast to coast. We're taking the pulse of America. And we start in Utah, where a professor is concerned untraceable money is seeping into political races.
The races are on, and the signs of the season are out there. What is dark money?
Dark money is money that you cannot trace.
Is there dark money in these local races in Utah County?
Yes.
John Barrick, accounting professor, politically engaged, brought financial disclosures today, one showing $100,000 going from a Delaware entity to a Utah PAC that feeds local candidates.
There are people that would like to have influence with elected officials, and they don't want you to know who they are.
Does your organization deal in dark or less than transparent money in political races?
No, we do not.
Sissy Rasmussen is with the Stronger Orem PAC, a group Barrick alleges is less than transparent over funding political campaigns. Now his 200-page complaint is under review by the Office of the Lieutenant Governor.
This is our home, and as you can see later, I took over the back.
This is Dan Marsh, an inventor here in San Antonio that lives by one rule. There are no rules. When he retired 4 years ago, he turned his passion for renewable energy into action.
When they spin too fast, they make too many volts, and too many volts can burn up controllers, it can melt devices. There's got to be a better way.
And now, with Dan's company, Pirate Wind Turbines, there just might be.
We're able to control the volts no matter the speed.
Others in the industry see the promise. In an email, BWind CEO and co-founder Michael Burdan said, quote, "It could make significant improvements to horizontal and some vertical designs." Dan's also gotten guidance from industry leaders like Jonathan Knight of Uprise Energy.
A mural honoring legendary Syracuse basketball coach Jim Boeheim has just been unveiled. The artist Chris Murray grew up in upstate New York and loves Syracuse basketball.
You know, being a small town kid, having somebody from like your neck of the woods walk amongst giants and be one of those giants, I mean, it was just the representation that like we all kind of needed.
The mural, funded with the help of a GoFundMe, features all the different emotions and eras of Boeheim's career spanning over 40 years. Still to come, holiday season is just around the corner. The best time to book your trip to avoid breaking the bank. And priceless artifacts may be gone for good. The world-famous museum now addressing security concerns. Taking a look at the top trending stories on our website right now, Coca-Cola is now selling its classic drink made with cane sugar as opposed to high fructose corn syrup in select U.S. cities. Plus, the world-famous Louvre Museum was robbed of over $100 million worth of jewels last weekend. Over 100 investigators are on the case as they work to track down the thieves. Plus, the FDA expands an egg recall, which now covers more than 6 million eggs for possible salmonella contamination. Officials say the Black Sheep Egg Company recalled hundreds of thousands of egg cartons last month after testing found 7 strains of salmonella. Those stories and much more available right now at thenationaldesk.com. The New York Times reports Amazon is looking to build and use more robots, potentially replacing 500,000 human jobs. It says Amazon is hoping the robots would allow it to avoid hiring new workers, translating to more than 600,000 jobs replaced by 2033. Documents show the robotics team has a plan to ultimately automate 75% of its operations. In a statement, Amazon said the documents viewed by the Times did not represent the company's overall hiring strategy. If you are traveling this holiday season, you should think about booking your flights. We mean right now. If you want to fly on or around Thanksgiving, the cheapest options will be available this month. That's according to a new Google report on 2025 holiday travel trends and tips. For Christmas, you should book by November 4th. The most expensive day to book flights is Sunday. The cheapest is Tuesday. Coming up, a popular fruit could be key to easing a common digestive issue, the new diet guidance. You're watching the National News Desk, America's News Now. You can catch us live weekdays from 6 a.m. to 11 a.m. and 10 p.m. to midnight Eastern Time, and anytime online at thenationaldesk.com. We'll be right back. The National News Desk, locally covered, nationally connected.
The problem with this national debt record is that we just keep on breaking it.
The U.S. continues to break debt records amid the government shutdown. We break down the new numbers.
We are doing very well. We are in a very good place. We're going to have to keep working on it.
Vice President J.D. Vance in Israel as the U.S. works to keep the fragile ceasefire in Gaza intact. The message he had for Israel and their Arab partners. And retirement, once a dream, now a nightmare? Why researchers say sailing off into the sunset could be bad for your health. From the nation's capital, this is the National News Desk, America's News Now. Thank you for being here. I'm Dee Dee Gatton, and we begin this half hour with the United States now adding to its national debt faster than ever before, according to new numbers from the Treasury Department. National correspondent Matt Gelka has more on the rapidly rising problem.
It's a record-breaking number that fiscal watchdogs are not celebrating. The United States debt surpassed $38 trillion, with the tab piling up even as the government is in the middle of a shutdown.
The problem with this national debt record is that we just keep on breaking it.
Committee for a Responsible Federal Budget President Maya McGuinness called the number appalling and said lawmakers are debating the wrong priorities as they try to figure out how to reopen the government.
The crazy thing here is that the only ask on the table is, can we spend more and borrow more? There's a $1.5 trillion request for additional health care policies, none of which would be paid for.
Another troubling sign is just how fast the $38 trillion line was crossed. The U.S. had just hit $37 trillion in gross national debt in August. The $1 trillion jump in 2 months was the fastest accumulation of debt outside of COVID. The Bipartisan Policy Center says this isn't a Republican or a Democrat problem, it's everyone's problem, with no end in sight.
Right now, the government is shut down. And while some people around the country may think that that actually saves money because we're not paying for certain things, ultimately it actually costs us money because we end up paying just later for all the things that we would have done during this period.
The fastest growing part of the debt isn't even spending that goes towards American life, according to the Peter G. Peterson Foundation. It's paying the interest on existing debt. The country spent $4 trillion on interest over the past 10 years, but is expected to spend $14 trillion over the next decade. The Trump administration has touted its measures as a long-term solution to cut the debt. Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent posted on X this week that the government's yearly deficit spending from April to September is down 40% from 2024 and the lowest since 2019. Reporting in Washington, I'm Matt Gelka for the National News Desk, America's News Now.
Vice President J.D. Vance and Secretary of State Marco Rubio, they both visited Israel this week to safeguard the fragile ceasefire in Gaza. The U.S. now eyeing an international security force to rid Gaza of Hamas. The hope is such a force could guarantee a reconstruction of the enclave that's safe for Palestinians and for Israel. Vice President J.D. Vance says it won't be easy and it'll take time. He also stresses that while the U.S. would have a supervisory role, no American service members would be in harm's way.
I do think that we've made a lot of progress in understanding what the composition of the ISF would look like and understanding what would be necessary for it to actually be effective, and then just to understand how Central Command is going to work with the troops who are going to actually be on the ground. Again, no American troops on the ground, but American troops supervising and mediating the peace.
It's not immediately clear which nations would place troops in Gaza as part of the international team. Hamas still has operatives in Gaza. The U.S. and Israel say it can't retain power. Attorney General Pam Bondi slams a Democratic plan to launch an online tracker of immigration enforcement activity. Bondi claims the move is an attempt to put ICE agents at risk. She says the Justice Department will prosecute anyone who physically assaults an agent. California Congressman Robert Garcia announcing that the Oversight Committee will launch the site in the coming weeks. The public will be allowed to send information on ICE activity in their communities. The North Carolina House has approved a new congressional map aimed at helping Republicans. Lawmakers gave final approval to the map after the state Senate passed it Tuesday. The map could give Republicans an additional U.S. House seat after next year's midterms. It targets the state's only competitive Democratic district. Under the map used in last year's election, the GOP controlled 10 seats. The new district lines will give Republicans an advantage for 11 of the 14 U.S. House seats from North Carolina. Despite the government shutdown, the Department of Homeland Security just bought 2 high-end private jets for the Secretary's official travel. The U.S. Coast Guard entered into a contract with Gulfstream Aerospace Corporation to purchase 2 G700 jets for more than $170 million. The planes they'd been using reportedly had maintenance issues. Democrats are slamming the purchase. 2 members wrote a letter to Nome asking whether they got the money for the jets and why they didn't inform Congress. Taking a look over Washington, D.C., where federal prosecutors have announced charges against 2 more teens in connection to a series of assaults, including that of a former DOJ staffer in August. According to the Justice Department, 19-year-old Lawrence Cotton Powell and 18-year-old Anthony Taylor now face charges. Prosecutors say the 2, together with at least 8 others, assaulted and robbed a man at a D.C. gas station before jumping Edward Korstein, the former DOJ employee. Janine Pirro, U.S. Attorney for D.C., is using the case to criticize the city's criminal justice system, citing Cotton Powell's criminal history.
So after a felony of attempted robbery conviction, after a violation of probation, after a second crime, after a second conviction, after no compliance with C. Sosa, the judges say do better and they let him go. And guess what? Within 10 days, he's at it again.
A D.C. court last week already sentenced 2 15-year-olds to serve 9 to 12 months probation in connection to Korstein's assault. Pirro, who demanded the 2 serve 6 years in juvenile custody, criticized the ruling as shameful. The U.S. Supreme Court has agreed to consider whether a law barring people who use illegal drugs from owning guns violates the Second Amendment. The case centers on a man's 2023 indictment. The FBI said it found a gun and drugs at his home. A federal district court dismissed the charge, citing a landmark 2022 Supreme Court decision expanding gun rights. The Justice Department argues habitual drug users could pose a public safety risk. Former FBI Director James Comey has filed to dismiss his criminal charges. His lawyers argue the case is based off a vindictive prosecution over President Trump's personal animosity towards him. His attorneys also say the indictment is being led by an interim U.S. attorney appointed unlawfully. The Justice Department has accused Comey of lying to Congress and obstructing justice. A coalition of big city health leaders is speaking out in support of vaccines. In a statement, the Big Cities Health Coalition said falling vaccination rates are leading to new outbreaks of measles and polio. The group also accuses some federal officials of spreading false claims and limiting access to vaccines. City health directors say they're stepping up and organizing to protect communities as trust in federal health agencies declines. Republican Congresswoman Marjorie Taylor Greene is warning her party: bring down prices or face the major headwinds in the midterms. The conservative firebrand tells Semaphore, I can't see into the future, but I see Republicans losing the House if Americans are continuing to go paycheck to paycheck. They'll definitely be going into the midterms looking through the lens of their bank account. She's aggressively hit her party recently on health care as well. Here's how other GOP lawmakers are handling prices.
But I have all the confidence in President Trump that he absolutely is working for the American people to get us out of that devastating inflationary period under the last administration.
But this administration is 9 months in, and President Trump had vowed to lower prices from day one.
Greene has also been outspoken in accusing House Speaker Mike Johnson of holding a vote compelling the release of all of the Epstein files. New York Attorney General Letitia James pleaded not guilty to felony charges of bank fraud and making false statements to a financial institution. James was indicted earlier this month on 2 felony counts of bank fraud and making false statements to a financial institution. President Trump had publicly urged the Justice Department to take action against James, especially since she won a major civil fraud case she brought against him. A tentative trial date was set for January 26. Ticketmaster says it does more than anyone to fight bots and get tickets into the hands of real fans. That's the company's response to a Federal Trade Commission lawsuit filed last month, accusing the platform of working with resellers to raise prices. Ticketmaster says it's rolling out new measures to bar users and ticket brokers from making multiple accounts. It denies claims by the FTC that it misleads customers and colludes with resellers. So to come here on the National News Desk, our team of correspondents breaks down this week in Washington, from the state of the nation amid the government shutdown to an update on the Golden Dome.
And welcome back to the National News Desk. Our Washington Bureau covers the nation's capital every day, and our team of correspondents reports on the important issues facing the country and how they impact you. The national debt continues to rise at a record pace, topping the $38 trillion mark this past week. National correspondent Matt Galka, what's the reaction to the exploding debt here in Washington, and are there any plans to get it under control?
Yeah, Steve, you know, look, they say records are meant to be broken, but this really isn't a record worth celebrating at all. $38 trillion in debt. And to put that in perspective, the debt just reached $37 trillion in August. So that 2 months or so that went by, that $1 trillion additional debt is the fastest accumulation of $1 trillion in the nation's history, at least since COVID. And so fiscal watchdogs are saying this is appalling. This is not sustainable whatsoever. And all of this, of course, is going on while there's a government shutdown. And you might be thinking, okay, so the government is shut down. We're not spending money. That's a good thing. Well, actually, this whole thing has the opposite effect.
Right now, the government is shut down. And while some people around the country may think that that saves money because we're not paying for certain things, ultimately it actually costs us money because we end up paying just later for all the things that we would have done during this period.
And if you think about all of the furloughed workers who are eventually going to be paid, they're not doing any work right now. That is not the most efficient use of money, at least according to some of the fiscal watchdogs out there. Now, look, the question remains, are lawmakers taking this seriously enough? Are they doing enough to address this in the future, especially as they have these budget talks and this budget showdown now with the government shutdown? To put a bow on all of this, the fastest growing part of the debt right now is not services and not programs that the country is spending to better the lives of American people or advance priorities. It's actually the interest we're paying on the existing debt. The interest we paid in the past 10 years was about $4 trillion, and it's expected to be about $14 trillion over the next 10 years.
National correspondent Matt Galka, thank you. Meanwhile, one of America's closest allies unveiling groundbreaking new technology that its creators say could play a key role in President Trump's ambitious Golden Dome project. National correspondent Kayla Gaskins, you spoke to the CEO of the company behind that technology this week.
I did, Steve. So I spoke with Yoav Turgeman. He's the CEO of Rafael. It's an Israeli defense company that also makes the Iron Dome and another key part of Israel's aerial defense called David's Sling. Now, they were in Washington to show off their latest technology, this new system called the Iron Beam that really feels like it's something out of a science fiction movie. So this Iron Beam shines a laser, and that laser is able to take out missiles or rockets or even drones in warfare and completely destroy them. Very cool technology, but it's perhaps, Steve, most consequential because of its cost. This beam costs just dollars as it shines and destroys these missiles and rockets. That's versus the typical interceptor missiles that Israel uses as part of their defense system. Those can cost in the hundreds of thousands or even upwards of $1 million each, and those costs really adds up. Turgeman pointed out that will hopefully deter terror groups like Hamas, Hezbollah, and Iran from firing cheap rockets that they know will likely be shot down, but are really being fired into countries like Israel to drain their defense budgets.
You gain nothing, you don't cause any economical damage, you don't cause any physical damage, and you are being intercepted by light. This is, very frustrating to the attacker.
And see, one of President Trump's big defense goals is to build the Golden Dome aerial defense system over the United States that he's referenced will act sort of like Israel's Iron Dome, a multi-layered defense system. Now, Rafael is in talks with American companies to see if they can work out a system in order to be chosen by the White House to be the ones to build this system.
National correspondents Kayla Gaskins, Matt Galka, excellent reporting as always. Thank you both for your hard work. Back to you.
Fewer children are suffering from peanut allergies. That's according to a new study in the journal Pediatrics, which found a 43% drop. This after a big national guidance change in 2017 that encouraged early peanut introduction for babies. Experts say early exposure helps babies build food tolerance. Eggs are now the top allergen for young children. Attorneys general nationwide are suing the gaming giant Roblox, accusing the platform of failing to protect children after a report shows those as young as 5 were able to communicate with adults while playing games on the platform. The Florida Attorney General is the latest to issue criminal subpoenas to Roblox, seeking what he calls information about alleged criminal activity. This comes after Kentucky and Louisiana filed similar lawsuits.
Companies like Roblox have become breeding grounds for predators to get to and have access to our kids.
Roblox is the website of choice for child predators.
Roblox responding strongly disputing these allegations, saying the assertion that Roblox would intentionally put our users at risk of exploitation is categorically untrue. Roblox has implemented rigorous safeguards such as restrictions on sharing personal information. A climate disaster database the Trump administration got rid of has been saved by a nonprofit. It tracks extreme weather disasters that cause $1 billion or more in damage to property and other infrastructure. In its first update, the database shows that the first 6 months of 2025 have been the most expensive first 6 months of any year since 1980, with $101 billion in losses. Eating 3 kiwis a day can make a difference with constipation. That's according to new dietary guidelines co-published in 2 health journals. Researchers say roughly 10 to 20% of people suffer from a form of constipation, which can be caused by stress, lack of exercise, and low fiber intake. If kiwi isn't an option, other food can help, like prunes and oranges. Many Americans dream of retiring early, imagining more time for family, travel, and relaxation. But new research suggests that clocking out too soon could actually shorten your life. The National News Desk, Angelo Brown explains.
The dream versus reality for retirement and what that looked like for your grandparents may not be true for you.
You leave work, you have a pension, you retire, and you sort of slow down and sip tea on the porch, and that's it. Retirement is not like that for people.
There are competing narratives about what retirement could look like. Goldman Sachs releasing their new Economics of Retirement report. More Americans living paycheck to paycheck, making it harder to save for the golden years.
Costs like childcare, costs like going to college, costs of housing and renting. All of those costs are taking a much larger percent of share of someone's income.
But what we don't hear as much about, retiring too early may not be as good for your health. This study, published by the CDC, examined over 83,000 older adults 65 and up for nearly 15 years. Employed older adults had better health outcomes than unemployed older adults. Stephen Cates from Bankrate is seeing retirees take on more challenges post-career.
I had clients who retired to start their own business, and they worked harder at that business than they did in their career.
And yet many Americans still dream of calling it quits as soon as they can. And when it comes to Social Security, a new survey found that 9 out of 10 workers plan to claim benefits early, ignoring one of the most common pieces of financial advice: wait until you're 70. In Washington, D.C., I'm Angela Brown.
Coming up next, higher education politics, the university crackdown that is leaving college professors on edge, and shootings, break-ins, even how long it takes police to answer a 911 call, the vital feedback helping a major city keep its residents safe. This is the National News Desk, America's News Now. We have reporters all across the country in your neighborhoods covering issues that matter to you. We are taking the pulse of America, and we start in Washington, where people's perceptions of public safety are shaping crime-fighting strategies.
While crimes of violence often grab the headlines, there are more persistent public safety issues that neighborhoods can face.
Homelessness, encampments, particularly in front of our businesses.
Others in Seattle say it's not just the crime that raises concerns, but also how the city responds.
We got broken into, I think a total of 9 times. I think the police came once or twice, maybe.
This is the feedback the Seattle Public Safety Survey tries to capture.
The whole purpose of the survey is to be able to understand people's perceptions on crime and public safety at the neighborhood level, realizing that no neighborhood is alike.
Well, it happened Saturday night, and now the search for the suspect is heating up as students react to the news. Saturday on the campus of Johns Hopkins University.
The Hopkins dispatch is the one that called that in. We still need police officers to respond.
Baltimore police responding to an assault and attempted rape of the female student.
Almost all of us walk to class, and we're just looking to go to class. We're not we're just going about our day. So this is really unfortunate.
Look here. This is the man police say is responsible for the attack. Metro Crime Stoppers is offering a $2,000 reward for the man seen in the images as the search continues.
Cal Gilson is a political science professor at Southern Methodist University. The shift of politics into higher education, he says, is nothing new. The latest crackdown on public universities is just one example. This weekend, Governor Greg Abbott shared an article about a UT Austin professor removed from a leadership position because of, quote, ideological differences. He wrote on X, Texas is targeting professors who are more focused on pushing leftist ideologies rather than preparing students to lead our nation. Gilson says the level of disruption Texas schools are seeing will likely have lasting side effects.
Universities have to have stability, like any other major institution, to plan long-term, execute those plans, improve, develop, and grow.
Still ahead, the NFL is taking a stand why the league says it won't back down amid halftime show backlash. Plus, a historically cold weather country now facing a pesky insect for the first time. The data that could give insight on whether the infestation is here to stay. WNBA players may be close to getting a big pay raise. NBA Commissioner Adam Silver reiterated WNBA players, he says, deserve the increase. Players have increasingly called for a larger share of the league's revenue. The comments come nearly a week before the current WNBA collective bargaining agreement expires. NFL Commissioner Roger Goodell says Bad Bunny is still headlining the Super Bowl halftime show. Conservative media and the Trump administration criticized the choice, citing the singer's Spanish-only lyrics. Goodell says they've never selected a halftime artist that didn't draw blowback. Bad Bunny's been vocal about not doing tour stops in the U.S. over fears that ICE agents would raid his concert venues. For the first time, scientists say mosquitoes were found in Iceland. Iceland and Antarctica were previously the only places in the world without the pesky insects due to their cold climates. The discovery comes after the country experienced record-breaking heat in May. Scientists say they will need to monitor in the spring to see whether the species can survive the winter and become truly established. That'll be all for us on the weekend edition of the National News Desk, America's News. Now, don't forget, you can catch us live from 6 a.m. to 11 a.m. and 10 p.m. to midnight Eastern Time. Just check our local listings. You can also watch us online and catch up with the latest headlines on thenationaldesk.com. Thanks for watching the weekend edition of the National News Desk. I'm Dee Dee Gatton, and from all of us here, hope you have a great week.